Hey guys, welcome back to Fantasy Tip. My name is Julian, and in today's episode, we're continuing the series of episodes that I've been making for each individual NHL team, talking about all of their noteworthy players, and then if I think you should consider drafting those players or not. We've been going alphabetically from A to Z, and now we've reached Carolina. Now, Carolina has had a pretty interesting offseason. They acquired guys like Pacioretty and Paul Stastny, but they also lost important pieces like Niederreiter and Trocheck. So stay tuned to find out how I think they're going to finish this year and how I think their important players will do. Before we get started, guys, please leave a like, hit that subscribe button, and hit that notification bell if you want notifications for all of my preseason content. Let's get into it now, and let's start with the projected lines that I have for the Carolina Hurricanes. On the top line, we have Andrei Svechnikov, Sebastian Aho, and Seth Jarvis. On that second line, we have Teuvo Teravainen, Paul Stastny, and Martis Necas. And on the third line, we have Faust, Jordan Staal, and Ondrej Kase. So jumping into their noteworthy players now, and first on the list is their goaltender, Frederick Andersen. And last year, he had himself a fantastic season, had a great save percentage, had 35 wins, and he even missed a little bit of time to injury. So if this dude can stay healthy, he's going to have himself an amazing season. I absolutely love drafting Frederick Andersen this year. If you guys watched my goaltender rankings, which I'll link right up there, I like him a lot. He's one of my favorite goalies for fantasy this year, and I think he's going to have himself a great year. Then at number 28 is Sebastian Aho. NHL has him ranked here, and it makes sense. He had a pretty good season last year. He finished as the 35th best fantasy player overall. The only thing to note is that he is locked in as a natural center, and that position is not particularly super valuable, so I probably personally wouldn't draft Sebastian Aho this early in the draft because there are a lot of really, really good centers going later in the draft. However, he's definitely still not a bad draft pick at this range if you want to go ahead and grab him. And then I have Andrei Svechnikov, left wing, right wing, ranked 40 by NHL.com. And I actually really like him here in this range. Last year, I had 69 points in 78 games, which is significantly less than Sebastian Aho. However, he actually finished as a better fantasy player in leagues that have hits than Sebastian Aho. He was actually better than him, and he's going significantly later, 12 spots later than Sebastian Aho. And he's actually going to be more valuable than Sebastian Aho in leagues that have hits because he hits a fairly decent amount, and he even shoots a little bit more than Sebastian Aho. I really like Svechnikov around number 40. So next on the list, guys, is Brent Burns. And he had himself a nice season last year, scoring 54 points in 82 games. He looked pretty good considering he was on a very, very bad San Jose Sharks team. Had some nice shots on goal numbers, had some nice blocks numbers as well. Overall, he was pretty good, everything considered. Now, he's going to be moving to a Carolina Hurricanes team that is a winning team. They're a very good team, and he's going to be taking Tony DeAngelo's spot on that top power play. That's where DeAngelo was last year. That's where he was deployed. And DeAngelo managed to finish as the 94th best fantasy player last year in terms of fantasy points per game, which is pretty good. Now, Burns is ranked here at 61. However, Brent Burns shoots a significant amount more than Tony DeAngelo, and even last year. However, in the past, when San Jose was a winning team, Brent Burns would shoot the puck over 300 times per year, which is absolutely insane. So he's someone that could probably hit that again with a team who's actually going to be spending a lot of time in the offensive zone with a power play that's going to be pretty potent in Carolina. I see Brent Burns hitting some really, really nice shots on goal numbers, not to mention he's going to block more shots than DeAngelo. He's definitely going to be worth drafting around this range. Then they have Teuvo Teravainen ranked around 86, and that's pretty much where he belongs. He's probably going to get a good opportunity either on the first or second line this year. Regardless of where he is, he probably will also play on the top power play and will probably end up having a season similar to his season last year. 65 points, that's pretty good. Then I have Jaccob Salvin, who NHL.com ranks at number 170. And he was a pretty good player last year, managed to score 42 points in 79 games and had a pretty solid fantasy season all in all. Now, it makes sense to rank Jaccob Salvin in this range because that's where he finished last year. However, a plus 35 is very hard to replicate. And also 42 points in the season is something he's never done before. So it remains to be seen if he can actually do that again. He's probably going to have to play a little bit more defense because Burns is going to be pinching offensively a lot, especially if they are paired together. So he may not be able to put up as many points as he did before. We'll have to see, which is why I'm going to be personally avoiding him in this range, but I don't think he's a terrible value in this range either. Then I have Seth Jarvis, who is ranked 173 on NHL's list, and he actually finished as the 230th best fantasy player last year. And he's ranked a little bit higher than that. Reason being is that this year he may get a real good opportunity to play both top power play and on the top line. He could end up being on that top line with Svechnikov and Aho, which would be a really nice top line and a really good opportunity for Seth Jarvis. If he does, it's going to look pretty good for him. He's going to have a pretty nice outlook there. So I think the ranking does make sense to rank him 60 spots higher just because Jarvis may have that opportunity. That being said, it's not 100% that he's going to get that deployment. If he doesn't, he's not going to have the value for 173, which is why I don't hate drafting him here, but I think there are some safer options in this range that I would probably go for instead. And then they have Antti Raanta ranked at 208, and that doesn't make any sense to me. Antti Raanta is locked in as a backup goaltender. He's nothing more than Frederick Andersen's backup. He's going to get the back-to-back games and maybe an occasional game here and there as well. However, it's pretty hard to justify drafting Antti Raanta in fantasy unless Frederick Andersen gets injured in the preseason or something like that. Antti Raanta doesn't have a whole lot of value in fantasy. And then they got Paul Stastny ranked at number 248. Had a pretty decent season last year with Winnipeg with 45 points in 71 games. He ended up as the 234th ranked player last year, which isn't particularly great, but I think he could probably do better in Carolina. He's going to get a nice second line role there. He was kind of shifting between the third and second lines in Winnipeg a little bit, so he didn't always have the best deployment last year. Paul Stastny, this year, he's going to have a little bit of a better deployment. So in deep leagues, I probably would consider drafting him because he probably will end up centering that second line, which is a pretty good place to be. Playing with guys like Teravainen, it's not too bad. Obviously, he's not crazy value or anything like that. He's probably going to end up being a waiver that you can pick up and drop at different points in the year. However, I don't think he's bad value at this range. Then I have Jordan Staal ranked at 250 plus, which means that they had him on the list until very recently, actually, until they signed Paul Stastny. And after they signed Paul Stastny, NHL decided to drop Jordan Staal off their list. Now, I still think Jordan Staal is a pretty good value here. Going after 250, like it's insanely late in the draft. And if you do for some reason need a centerman, he actually was 23rd in the league in hits last year and was 12th in the league in face-off wins. So for categories leagues with those categories, he's going to help you a lot. And even in points-based leagues where you need hits, he's someone that hits a lot. And he does get about a point every 2 games, even though he's a third liner, which is not bad at all. And that's why he gives you a pretty safe floor night in and night out. If you do need a centerman, he's definitely someone who's pretty good value after 250. Then I have Martis Necas, and he had a really rough season last year, and he could get second line minutes again like I projected, but they could also opt to put Kotkaniemi up there. It's hard to see where exactly Necas is going to end up in the lineup. They even played him on the fourth line a little bit last year, so it's a little bit concerning. So for that reason, I can't really justify drafting him again until I actually see him producing, because there's a good chance that he's just not useful for your fantasy team at all. Then I have Max Pacioretty, who's out until probably February, and obviously he's not ranked on NHL's list because he's out for a very long time. However, if you're in a league that has a lot of IR spots, he's someone that you could consider drafting in one of the very last rounds of your draft, because if you have a lot of IR spots, what's the harm in grabbing him and shoving him on your IR and just leaving them there for the season, right? He's someone that could definitely help you tremendously for the fantasy playoffs. He's an incredibly talented player. It's going to score you a lot of goals. And he's someone that could potentially win you your fantasy playoffs just because you opted to throw one of your last picks of the draft at him, which is pretty crazy. And then I have Jesperi Kotkaniemi and Ondrej Kase. Right now I have Kotkaniemi projected to be the fourth line center once again, which kind of sucks for him because they're not really giving him the opportunity to succeed after giving him a nice contract. So it's a bit strange there, but maybe they will give him second line time. But for now, I'm not going near him. Same thing with Ondrej Kase. He had a decent... Same thing with Ondrej Kase. He had a decent season with Toronto last year, but nothing too crazy. And I think he's going to start the year on the third line, which I don't expect him to do too much from there. We'll have to see if he does start producing. Maybe I'll take a look at him. But for now, not looking at him either. And that's it for the video, guys. Thank you so much for watching all the way through. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please leave a like, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, and I'll catch you in the next episode of Fantasy Tipped.